That was a lot of tech problems to solve. Hello, everybody. We are back, and I am joined by my friend and the CEO, owner, and founder of what I would call an A-list production music library, which I'm not going to mention the name of only because anybody in the world can watch this video, and I don't want them bombarding him with hundreds of emails. But Bob has been in the business, his company's been in the business for 33 years now. He himself is a composer, so he lives and breathes the composer life, and I think that's one of the reasons that his company is so well respected is because he treats composers like he'd want to be treated. Since its launch, the company has placed music in hundreds of television series, including such hits as Homeland, The Good Wife, Modern Family, New Girl, Girls, The Walking Dead, Shameless, Sons of Anarchy, True Blood, Dexter, Madam Secretary, Treme, The Wire, and many others. I'm thinking that's an old bio because I know you've had
I was just gonna say, I need to update that one.
Yeah, you do. They also supply music to TV specials and TV movies, dozens of high-profile motion pictures. I'm not going to name them because they're older. This definitely we grabbed an old bio, but anyway, the company gets more placements for our members than you can possibly imagine, and we've had a great working relationship now for easily 10 years. Bob has signed tons of composers and songs through Taxi and gotten tons and tons of placements all the time. And the composers that I ran into at the rally that are in your catalog, they love you. By the way, I should let you know, Stephanie did a fantastic job. You were 100% right. Not that I had any reason to doubt you, but she was really knowledgeable. She's like scary smart, scary knowledgeable about all forms of music, highly articulate. And I was just sitting there moderating going, wow. So thank you for that. Stephanie works. Yeah, Stephanie works hand in hand with Bob every day, and he said, I can't be there. I'm out of town, but you've got to try Stephanie, and I'm so glad you recommended her. People that met her at the Mentor Lunch loved her. People who had her on a one-to-one absolutely loved her. So thank you.
Well, she is a well-trained and, as you said, very bright individual as well. So
yep,
we're happy to have her.
All right. I want to get my chat room open so I can see.
Was it nice to be back live again?
It was. It was scary, quite honestly. Hang on. I've got to get myself back to the live thing here. Ari, can you come and help me, please? I'm on my channel. I see YouTube. I don't see how to get back into the show. I'm on that.
To watch what?
I want to see the chat.
Oh.
In the midst of solving all the tech problems, didn't do the standard stuff. There we go. You. Okay. Now I've got the chat.
Yeah, Bob's a little quiet.
Yeah, Bob, is there any way for you? You know what? Let me bring his video up. I mean, his audio up. Audio mixer.
So my volume is quiet.
Yeah, I'm bringing you up over here.
Thank you.
No problem. Bringing you up, bringing me down a little bit so we're a little more matched. Hopefully that solves the problem. Man, oh man. I said yesterday, never again am I doing sequels live the day after the road rally. Big mistake. I mean, Ariana and I got back to the office after doing 3.5 days at the hotel, got back here at 8:30 last night and worked till like 10:30 or 11 prepping for today. Yeah.
Well, it's the price we pay as business owners.
Yep. All right. Anyway, hopefully we've got the audio worked out a little better. Yeah, the road rally was awesome. In answer to your question, I honestly was a little worried going into this one, and generally I'm not. But just because we were out of our groove doing 2 years of virtual ones and had to totally reorient, and literally we deal with thousands of details that from 11:15 to 11:20, this connector has to be in that room on that projector, and then at 11:40 it's got to come downstairs and be hooked up to the projector for the grand ballroom, and then at 2 o'clock, and so everybody's just running everywhere. We organize it. It worked. We finally got it to work. Anyway,
Fantastic.
Wow, I have one hell of a tan going on today. I look awesome. Anyway, so you know what? Give me a readout of what you would say the general health of the production library industry is right now. Coming out of COVID, things are back in production. Are you having a killer year? Are you having a little slow year because people are ramping up? How's it going?
Well, COVID was really interesting. As you know, I moved all the way across the country because I found that really nobody was going to offices, and all I needed truly was a serious high-speed internet connection. I could live anywhere I wanted. And so it was a very interesting time. COVID hit, and where we were blessed, actually, Michael, was that there was so much already in the can.
Yeah.
Before the full shutdown of the productions, and so that was all being done remotely. So I was still feeding music for, I don't know, months to these productions where they already had stuff in the can. Then there was about a month, I would say, really only about a month at that point, where it was like, well, okay, this is interesting. What's going to happen now?
Mm-hmm.
Because it got quiet, which
Isn't
I
that
never liked
scary?
when it was quiet, right? And well, it happens, but not like this. I mean, this was new for everybody, so it got a little quiet, but that didn't last long. And last year, historically, was our best year ever. And I have to say, this year, we've surpassed that by leaps and bounds.
Wow.
This has been unbelievable.
I heard that from a couple other library owners. They said they literally can't fill orders quickly enough. And it's funny because, something that happened, we may be the only people, Taxi may be the only people that really aware of this, but when the lockdown was happening, we all of a sudden started getting a lot of requests for music and songs that would be applicable for shows about the pandemic, knowing that when it was over, like after 9/11, we got a lot of requests for patriotic stuff and tragedy stuff, and that started happening again during the pandemic. Nobody really made any shows about it in the end. I think everybody was so burnt out by COVID and the pandemic, and it hasn't really officially ended. It may never end. So nobody cranked out any mini-series about the pandemic, about what the hospitals went through or families went through. So all that music that got collected by all these companies, I don't think ended up getting used, which is kind of sad. But hey, just the nature of...
Well, I think some of it was being used in promos for shows that were, 911 help things, and but you're right, it wasn't really put into the general programming. That being said, I think given a little time, a little bit of distance, that's going to change.
I hope so, because we heard a lot of great stuff.
Well, they didn't make a lot of World War II movies during World War II. A lot of that happened after the fact. I'm just saying, in Vietnam and all that, it's the same thing. I mean, you do want to have a little bit of space, and it's respect for what's going on. But I think that's going to change. As you may or may not know, I've been reaching out to Taxi voraciously for foreign language material.
Yeah.
And for, in my opinion, very obvious reasons. I don't know if others are, but I like to be ahead of the curve if I can. And, Yeah, and you guys have actually done fantastic for us. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks for asking for it. I don't know what the obvious reasons are. Is it something you can
Well,
talk
what's
about?
going on? Well, it's what's going on in the world. I mean, there's a lot happening, and I mean, if you remember shows like Homeland and a lot of these programs, they took hold of what's actually happening in the world and making series out of it. And
Yeah,
I'm of the opinion that what's going on currently isn't going to be over anytime soon.
right.
So I'm sure that it's going to filter in because it's part of the creative process. When things are not so good, it filters in. People write about it. They do scripting. There's films, and not only that, but it's such a one world thing anymore. I'm doing business everywhere. I mean, the shows are airing around the world. I'm doing business, with you know, uh, Japanese companies, and on and on and on. It's just you'd be, in my opinion, foolish not to broaden the spectrum,
Yeah.
um, and pay attention to other ethnicities. And I can't tell you, I get just so much requests. I mean, of course, for hip hop and pop and you know the normal fare, but we're kind of known as being able to be a little off the beaten path, so to speak, and we're able to offer our clients things that you don't find just anywhere. So, but business has been fantastic, Michael. I couldn't be happier. I really couldn't.
That's great. Somebody walked up to me in the hallway, like in the bar area of the hotel this weekend, and said, "Hey, I saw that you're doing this thing with Bob Mair. He's a very smart guy. Can you ask him this question for me?" So I'm going to ask it. With less and less people watching broadcast and cable TV, are there less opportunities for me to get placements for my music?
No.
Yeah, it sounds
No,
like
there are
more.
not less opportunities. Your feed is really kind of, you're stuttering. Your feed is a little, just so you know.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just letting you know. No, I don't see that as a problem at all. The streaming thing, it's all part of the same. I mean, if you look at BMI numbers, ASCAP numbers, they're surpassing their performance royalties annually, every year. I just had another conversation with some of the people over at BMI. Their film and TV department is bringing in large numbers. So I'm not really concerned at all. Their music will not be going away anytime soon. And the need to marry or sync music to visual media is not going to end.
That's great. There are more outlets, just everywhere you turn, there's some new form of media being broadcast. And my only hope, and I'm sure you've got this hope right there with me, which is that musicians, composers, get what they're worth. It's like, I don't know why it's always been this way, but music is always at the bottom of the totem pole. It's like everybody else gets paid. Unions negotiate for higher fees for like lighting guys and grips. And the poor composers are always like last to the party. So I hope that as the industry grows and the way that media is broadcast, that musicians don't just get, percentages of a single penny on a stream. It sucks. Anyway.
Well, it's going to be what it is, and I'm sure the writers know. I mean, everybody loves Spotify. I mean, everybody, no one wanted to pay 99 cents for a download on iTunes. I mean, there was a real reluctance. Why would I do that? I don't. It's like, hey, it's music. You spend $5 on a Starbucks coffee, but you won't buy 5 singles on iTunes. I scratch my head, and it's a cyclical thing. You can't have. You're right. You can't have everything for free, But then
Right.
again, you have a lot of writers that are so hungry that they're willing to give their music away, which is unfortunate. We
That's
here
always been the
have,
case. There's always somebody standing behind you that will, like, I need to get my foot in the door. I'll do it for free.
which I understand. I have to say, I'm not going to say I don't understand it, because I do understand. Hey, when I was a giggy musician, I'd go out and play gigs for free because I wanted to meet the other players and get a reputation and get known out there. I understand it. It's the hungry entrepreneurial spirit. But here at Black Toast, we've actually raised our license fees. Actually, we did it last year, and there were some people that kind of were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, we bring a value, and I think it's time to, dig our heels in a little bit and try and generate more income for the writers." I mean, it's a bottom line for everybody, and we're, as you know, we're exclusive, and we're extremely selective about what we sign. And so and you met Stephanie. Imagine the two of us curating a catalog. I mean,
Wow.
The bar is pretty high.
Yeah.
And so if we're going through that to be able to bring our clients a certain level of music, then I agree with you. I think it should be paid for. There should be remuneration for that.
I agree. And if we could not mention the company name in the chat, because this is going out to a lot of people ultimately. So if you guys who are chirping out the name, you're only creating a hassle for Bob by having dozens of people sending him emails. So if you guys go in and delete those, I would sure appreciate that. I heard people talking about sync fees going down. Are you seeing that that's the case, or have they remained stable?
Like I just said, we've raised our sync fees,
and people have no problem. That's great.
Well, you get the old school, the people that have been there at some of these productions. I won't name any names, and they're old friends. I've been doing business with them for years and years and years, and they think I'm nuts, but when there's two pieces to the pie, when it comes down to this, you've got the creatives that want the best music that is possibly available for their love, their show, their film. They want that great piece of music, and for them, they don't want to be thinking about the money. It's like, well, there's a budget. You got the music supervisor going, well, there's this budget. And then, so you've got that, and then you've got the supervisor going, well, we've got this budget, well, we can push here and pull there. And then you've got the bean counters. I should probably watch what I say. But the people that are, and they don't care about the creative side really at all. They just know that, hey, it's a production music library. We should only be paying X, Y, or Z. And it's like, well, and Michael, I think you know this about us. We've never really looked at ourselves as a production music library.
It's just become a general term for anybody who supplies music. But you're right. A true production music library, the term is probably more applicable to like canned music back in the day, where you guys your stuff sounds like records.
It is when you look at what's happening now, a large number of the artists that we've signed are self-releasing their material. They are artists. They're making records. I mean, they're not pressing vinyl, and the days of CDs are gone the way of the dinosaur. So they're posting their music on the Spotifys of the world and the Bandcamps of the world. They are, generating top-notch music, and that's the stuff that we're signing. And so again, that's why I feel compelled to not mitigate the rates. I mean, I'm also very lucky that I've been in this business as long as I have. So we have, as you know, goodwill in the community, and there's a value that comes with that, so that when we do say, I mean, I haven't, we didn't double our rates. We didn't, but rather than lower our rates, we went the other way. We went, you know what, if you want to use our stuff, let's.
Right. Hey, there's a reason people. some people buy, a Toyota, some people buy a BMW or a Mercedes. It's all about, are you willing to pay for quality? Not that Toyotas actually aren't pretty good cars, but,
Right. Absolutely. Well, and again, we haven't priced ourselves out of the ballpark at all. I mean, I have my job is to curate a stellar catalog and to be able to monetize it for us and the writers. And my job is also to make sure I haven't priced ourselves out of the marketplace, to be able to make where the supervisors that I've been working with for 20 some years, that they're still able to come to us and get good music. Now, if somebody I've been doing business with for 20 years comes to me and goes, Bob, I'm doing this indie film, can we negotiate?
Yeah, do me a solid.
Yeah, you know what? It's worked to our benefit in the past. So, and I'm still monetizing somebody's music. So I'm still able to send them a check.
Yep.
But by doing that, it comes back in spades because that supervisor remembers that, and they go, you know what? He's been really cool on this side. I've had them pay some very nice sync fees on the other side when they had that in their budget.
Yeah, they remember.
And then I'm able to pass that along. So it's just relationships. It's how one does business with other people. Again, I think if I were just to sign anything and everything, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Let's talk about companies that do tend to, not all of them, but many of them tend to sign anything and everything, and those would be the royalty-free libraries that are out there. That it really breaks my heart when somebody doesn't get a forward from Taxi, and then they go online, either on our forum or somewhere else, social media, and they say, oh, Taxi didn't forward this, yet I got it into a library. Well, there are libraries, and there are libraries, and it's just not that hard to get it into a royalty-free library, which I know is one of your favorite subjects that we talk about frequently. Explain, without mentioning specific company names, explain why royalty-free doesn't really work that well for the industry, especially the composers.
Well, that royalty-free means what it says. It means you're not going to get royalties on your performances. So, I mean, hey, look, if some company, I don't swim in that pool. I don't know those people. I don't want to know those people. But hey, if they're going to write you a check for $10, $20, $30, $50,000 to bring a bunch of your music in, and they're not going to pay you any royalties, it's a choice.
But they don't write checks that big. No, they don't. I know people that are putting their music in there for no check at all, and they're just proud that I've signed with a publisher, and it's a good ego boost. I mean, there are some of the companies out there that I don't think are a scam. It's just I don't happen to like the business model. I don't think they're ripping anybody off. But, it's an all-you-can-eat. Pay a $20 a month subscription fee, and you can use as much of this music as you want in anything from a wedding video to a YouTube video. And there's some that do kind of a hybrid thing that, yes, if we license it to a TV show, you will get royalties. But there's so much to understand, so much to track. And people just willy-nilly sign deals without reading any of the fine print and live to regret it. One of the ways that they live to regret it is, and I want to preface this by saying CD Baby, TuneCore, any of the companies that I'm aware of that do this stuff, they're all above board companies. They're not ripping anybody off. They're not doing anything illegal or unethical. However, the musicians that when they are doing their distribution through companies like CD Baby and TuneCore, and they see the part of the contract that says, would you like us to also include monetization? So if somebody finds your music online and they want to license it, we can do the paperwork and make that happen for you. And they go, oh, hell yeah, monetization, I get money? Sure, check that box. They don't realize they've just signed a publishing deal. Some are non-exclusive, some are exclusive. In either case, there's going to be problems down the road when they want to get their music into a Rolls-Royce level catalog like yours, or other companies that, especially the ones with exclusive deals, because they don't realize they've already signed a publishing deal. And in many cases, that publishing deal means if somebody stumbles on your music, we'll do the paperwork and take half the money for doing the paperwork. They're not out there actively curating. They're not out there pitching. They don't have 20 or 30-year relationships with music supervisors. And then they find out that, do you know, I don't think I told you this, but we had one of our regular clients that we work with, somebody you know well that you like and respect, reached out to us and said the last playlist that Taxi sent me, 60% of the music on that playlist had already been signed by these online aggregators. So once again, it's okay to use the aggregators to distribute your music. The minute you check the box for, can you monetize for me, for sync licensing, that's a whole different kettle of fish. Have any commentary on that situation?
How much time do we have?
About an hour.
Right.
Yeah, let's go deep on this.
Well, you know, that's one of the reasons I wanted Stephanie to be at the rally, and I'm glad you really liked her.
A lot.
We love her. We love her to death. She, you know, next year if you do another thing, she would be great to really dive deep into this. It's something that unfortunately we clean up a lot. We only will go to the efforts of cleaning it up if the music's at that level. But it is a shame when writers don't realize what they're signing. We're very big on, hey, get an attorney to review our agreement with you. You know, I want people to know what they're signing. You know, I'm not here to take advantage of people. I'm here to do my business, make them money, make myself money, move forward, no problems for my clients, etc. When you check that box for CD Baby or whatever, you have now, as you just said, Michael, you've locked your material up. And I mean, I have many times wanted to reach out to you and go, hey, is there any way you guys could, at Taxi, mitigate that so we're not having to field 60% of the music, only to find out it's unavailable? That is a huge waste of time.
Well, we do. We try our best to mitigate it, first of all, by talking about it on TAXITV incessantly, talking about it at the Road Rally incessantly, and also by putting verbiage in the listings that says, don't submit any music that's signed to CD Baby, TuneCore, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yet people still do. And I actually called one of our members that submitted stuff that was already signed to one of those deals. I said, why? You're a smart guy. I know you personally. Why did you do that? And he said, because the music is so good that even though they won't be able to get it, they're going to hear my music and be impressed and reach out to me for more. And I thought, you know, I understand your thinking, but it's lame thinking.
Well, I can tell you right now, for me, that would be okay. You've now gone into this category.
Right, and that category is I'm never going to do any business with you in the future.
Well, yeah, it's just, you know, it's very difficult. It's very difficult, and it kills me like it kills you when I hear something comes from you guys and it's killer. Yeah, and then I can't unwind the problem that has been made, unfortunately, by the creator, and 9 times out of 10, it's unknowingly. Yeah. And, you know, I can't, we try because we love writers. As you said, I'm a writer. Stephanie's a composer. She's an artist. You know, we love artists. We're here to help everybody. But it gets to the point where it's like, you can't be the writer for the writer and advocate for them before they create the problem. You know what I mean? Yeah. But this is why I try and do these TAXITV things and these interviews, and I try and hit every rally, and I wanted Steph to be there because writers need to know that they need to read. They need, it's the antithesis of the creative side of things. I understand that, which is why you want a good publisher on your side. But just to click boxes, and not know what you're doing. I get it. It would be great if there was and we're working on, as you know, our new website, and we're going to have a lot of FAQs on that website that I think is going to be very helpful when we get this up and running. At this point now, it's probably going to be February of next year, but it's going to answer a lot of those questions. I mean, I have writers going, "Hey, I released this thing on CD Baby. Can we still do business with it?" And then we have to go, "Well, what boxes did you sign?"
Right.
Check.
So you're okay with them using it as a distributor to get it out there, just
Absolutely.
not using it as a licensing arm.
You are correct. Because, again, I'm an exclusive music publisher. What's in our catalog does not reside anywhere else, which is another reason I think we bring value to that music. You're not going to find this piece of music anywhere else. It's not going to be in 5 other catalogs.
Right.
So to me, that it brings more value to the catalog and to the writers. But and it's been proven. So I'm not going to change that trajectory. The writers need to read, and you mentioned that you guys put some very clear language in your briefs, and I read your briefs because you include them every time you send me music.
Right.
I open those briefs and read what went into that brief, and I've seen you guys hone and push and pull, and I see it, this attempt to try and really narrow it down and go, this is what is needed. And I appreciate that, but I'll tell you, man, I can't tell you how many people don't read it.
Yeah.
They don't read it.
I don't get it. We're literally handing them business on a silver platter, and all they have to do is follow a few simple instructions. Some people just don't. Maybe a lot of people don't. It's frustrating.
But that's the nature of business, and it's a little challenging. But those people, the side they'll have going is they're great creators. I mean, the level of music, the creation, the creations that are going through you guys.
I like that word. You just invented a new word.
Creation. Stuff that's coming our way is just fantastic, that we reach out and want to deal with. The problem is those people don't have the other side kind of dialed in. And we as a company are willing to do some hand holding through that. But it gets to the point where if I get a sense this person doesn't read anything, then my agreement, if you're not going to read our agreement, I just don't want to have a problem down the line.
Let's expand this conversation because it's important. Somebody I know in the industry uses the word frictionless. We're looking for frictionless relationships. And I think all library owners don't mind doing a little bit of hand-holding at the outset of a new relationship, especially if somebody is new to the industry. But guys like you are on the phone, texting, emailing, taking phone calls, making phone calls all day long, 10, 12 hours a day. If you say you're not teaching a class and your job is not to handhold for 8 of those 12 hours a day. So people really need to take it upon themselves. If you want to be successful in this industry, educate yourself. Watch TAXITV. Read forums, go on the internet, learn this stuff, because your competitors who have signed with Bob and other great companies have done that, and they're not a pain in his ass. So if you're the squeaky wheel that is, you're going to go, wah, 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 wah. Maybe you'll sign the first thing, maybe you'll sign the second thing, but you're going to go cold on that relationship because you may like them as people, the music may be great, but if they represent too much of a time suck, they're not going to be in your go-to composer list.
Well, that would be true. I mean, the other thing is education is power. So if you are educated in your craft, and I don't mean just putting chords together or melodies together. I mean, there's 2 sides. It's called the music business. So it's not just music. If you're just doing music, and you don't care if you're putting your stuff in royalty-free catalogs, but you're happy because you're composing, I'm never going to tell anybody not to do whatever they want to do. But if you're thinking you want to monetize your music, if you want to make money, make a living doing it, now that changes the trajectory. And what I love about Taxi is they create a GPS so that you can figure out as a writer, I want to go from here to here and to here. And it would be like getting in your car and just driving, not knowing where you're going. Or you could plug in, I want to get film and television, placements, and I want to da-da-da-da. And you have a place to do that. This is why I'm always, you call, I show up as fast as I can, Michael.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We love the relationship. We have a symbiotic relationship, and on a personal level, we happen to really like each other, so that makes it even nicer. It's gone from being a business relationship with mutual respect to a friendship based on mutual respect in business.
Well, it's funny. You and I have had a lot of conversations. We're after the same thing. You and I are both in business. I mean, everybody's got to make a buck, but the behind it all is we love writers, we love music, we love this business, and we enjoy moving A to B to C.
Oh yeah.
I love when people go, oh my God, you got my piece of music in X show, or oh my God, I can't believe you got this in this film. And what really cracks me up is when it's a vintage piece of music and they go, oh, no one's done anything with that since 1980, and you got this place. It's fantastic. It makes me feel good. It makes them feel good. It makes the world a better place.
Glenn Ruger in the chat, you keep asking that same question over and over. We haven't opened up the floor to audience questions yet, so I'm sorry, but I'm kind of ignoring you. So if you could just chill on that until I say, okay, it's time for audience questions, I'll make sure you're among the first that get answered. Thank you, Glenn. I have noticed the industry being a little less concerned about universal lyrics, and I'll throw out a definition of what universal lyrics are. If I write a song about I met Susie on Christmas Eve in Paris under the Arc de Triomphe, and she had beautiful blue eyes and ruby red lips and a white fur coat. There's so many details in there, you couldn't possibly use that in a scene of a TV show or a movie because the details are going to fight the script. The script is the story. The actor's dialogue is the story. The music should be about how Susie made you feel without mentioning her name. When I met you, my world changed. Broad general statement. That could play under them falling in love. I've never met anybody quite like you. Things like that. General statements we can all relate to that boost or bolster or accentuate an emotion. So for the longest time, the industry was pretty picky about make sure the lyrics are universal in general, in nature. And I have noticed a trend, not so much on the library side, because you guys want to sign stuff that has the most possible uses that you can find to make yourself and the writer money by getting it licensed in as many places. But I've noticed TV shows where I hear very specific lyrics generally used as background source music where you can barely hear it, which is probably why they feel that it doesn't matter. A background source, for those of you who may not know, is music that's, say, my wife and I are at a bar and we go out on the dance floor and we're dancing and people are chatting and you hear glasses clinking and all that normal bar stuff going on. And there's music that's coming out of a jukebox or maybe even a live band. So it doesn't really matter if it's about I met Susie on Christmas Eve in Paris or whatever, because it's more of a texture. It's wallpaper at that point. Whereas that same song, if it's played featured, where it's up front, maybe even in a montage where the actors aren't saying anything and the song is supposed to tell you what's going on, you can't use it. So that's just my personal observation, that I'm hearing more and more stuff with pretty specific lyrics showing up as background source. Maybe I'm just such a freak that I pay attention to that stuff and that the average viewer at home doesn't. Have you noticed any shift in universal lyrics becoming a little less important?
I I wouldn't say I've seen a shift. I've been aware of this conversation for 20 plus years, and I tiptoed into very specific lyrics. And I did it because, I mean, okay, so talking about a place, I can't tell you how many times every year you get requests. I need some songs about New York. I need that quintessential New York, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's Vegas. I need that quintessential. It's either, the Rat Pack or it's whatever, and it's rolling the dice and hitting the tables. And so you have to, or I have to, judge. I don't just sign universal lyrics because there's a much bigger need out there. And thankfully, I get asked for those things. That being said, if it's so darn specific, and I mean really specific, what I would do is if I like the song that much, I would send the writer an email and just go, I would love to sign this song with the caveat that, because of your lyrics, it may get that one placement a year. Or, Christmas comes once a year. It's and
not
so,
in my world. I'm married to my wife. It's every day, Bob.
There you go.
Just in case she's watching the show.
There you go. Exactly. Same here, Michael. But no, there's certain things. Valentine's Day, Thanksgiving. All of these things that only happen once a year. You just realize that's going to be what that is. That being said, as you know, Hallmark and some of these other companies, you get a placement in their movie this year and it'll air 20, 30, 40 times. So your placements, you'll get your sync fee, with us you will, and you'll get those royalties. So that, that makes up for putting the effort in. Yeah, I don't know if I've seen a change. I've seen and I think Stephanie mentioned this, things about, social consciousness. That has been a very big thing over the last few years. And I get it. And there are subject matters that come and go. So I try and be very cognizant of that, because trends come and go. And then the only way that's going to rear its head again is if there's a documentary on a specific thing that comes up, But specific lyrics, it really depends. It's a fine line. I don't want to be the catalog that only has generic,
right,
lyrics.
I brought something up in the ballroom, and I can't remember if I mentioned you by name. I think I did, because Stephanie was on the panel, and I said, you love your boss. I love your boss. We were giving you a little love in the ballroom with probably 800 to 1,000 people in there. Actually, we had 966 seats in the ballroom this year.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, it was pretty filled. I think our registration was over 2,200 people this year. Anyway, I told everybody and made Stephanie aware of this, that you called me one day and asked for another library owner's phone number. And I said, why? And you said, because I just heard something that my clients really can't use. It's a great piece of music, but I'm hesitant to sign it because I don't want to tie it up. Whereas I know this other library, I think, has some clients that would use this. That was one of the menschiest business moves I've seen any library owner ever do. Rather than being selfish and taking it off the market so a competitor couldn't have it, you cared more about the composer getting into a catalog that had the clientele where it's going to see more use, which I just thought was incredible. So I wanted to give you a little public acknowledgement for being that guy. And I did it in the ballroom, and I think Stephanie said that's why I work for him. So
the writer, and I know the writer very well, I love writers. I mean, what can I say? Especially these people that are pouring their heart and soul into their music, and I know that, So And I've said to you too, Michael, I mean, look, I don't need to be greedy. It's like there's enough, in my estimation. I hope you're hearing this. There's so much business out there. There's enough for everybody, in my opinion. So, I'm doing quite well. I don't know. I'm assuming that some of my competition is as well. I don't have the time to pay attention to that. I'm just going, going, going. But look, it's how do you think that writer would feel, if they got this other placement and they were like, wow, thanks, Bob. It's like, you don't think that next time they write a great song, it might be coming back my way.
Right. And how would they feel conversely if you went ahead and signed it and it lays like a locks in the catalog for 7 years? It's like, can't believe they haven't done anything with that piece. Right. And a lot of libraries would do that. It's funny that you say that you're not really monitoring how your competition is doing. Let me give you an update. Something I've noticed, because we're Swiss, we're neutral, we have many friends in many places that we work with. And you made a prediction in the early days of COVID that absolutely came true. So I want to give you props for that. Your prediction was that the strong libraries would survive COVID and flourish again, on the back end. But you also said there are a million little libraries run by one person and not run very well. They're not dotting their I's, crossing their T's, and they're not quality oriented. Those people are going to fall by the wayside because the business is drying up because of COVID right now. You were so right. There were probably 6 or 7 libraries where I had reached out to people to find out more about them as companies before we'd run listings with them, and they're all gone, every one of them.
Wow.
So yay! Once again, you were right.
Well, I like being right, but I don't like to see businesses fail. So it's a tough industry, and I'm very blessed that we've been doing it for over 30 years. To think about starting what I do now, and I know people are doing it every day of the week, and I wish them the best of luck. Like I say, I think there's enough business out there for everybody. But wow, I mean, it's daunting. It's a daunting business.
Yep.
And the people that are really the shakers and the movers, the people that are doing the real business, they don't want to get burned, and they keep their field pretty narrow. I notice every once in a while a supervisor will, instead of the BCC, you'll have the list.
Right, I love that.
And about once or twice a year it happens, and I laugh, Stephanie and I laugh, and we just review the peeps, and it's generally the same group of 10. And it's the people that I have known that have a great track record, and I don't see chafe coming in. And that's why I go, well, even to prove you're not chafe at this point, to start from zero, as even a fully, magnanimous catalog, the slope is just so steep, I'm not saying it can't be done. People could have said that to me 30 plus years ago. But it's interesting times. It's interesting times. But I would say there's no end to the need for music. Your company is not going to be slowing down anytime soon. I don't think. I'm guessing your year has been similar to mine. Crazy busy.
We have been very crazy busy. 2020 was actually really good. The first year of COVID was really good for us because people were stuck at home, and they said, well, if there's ever going to be a time where I'm going to jump into this with both feet, this is the year. And then 2021 was ever so slightly, like 1.6% lower than that. And then this year, like everybody, sales are good, but our expenses are high because of inflation, and that's just, you can only just wait that out. But it's all part and parcel with owning a business, as you well know. Let's talk about we've talked about this before, but I want to do it today because it's maybe the single most important thing we ever talk about, which is you could have the greatest song in the world, but it's not right for sync. You could have a B plus song where it's like, okay, not that impressive, but pretty darn good. Maybe I should give it an A minus, not a B plus. And that is ultimately far more syncable than the world's greatest song. And the reason is because it's right. Some songs, you and I, any of us who are pros in the industry, we know literally in a matter of seconds if something is probably going to be syncable or not. And it's hard to convince people who are new to the industry that it's not about here's my the old school version. Here's my CD. This is awesome. You got to check it out. It may be the next Beatles, but there's some things that work for sync and some that don't. Can you describe what makes some music more syncable?
Yeah. Absolutely. I guess, the advantage I have on that front is that I see these briefs, 10 briefs a day, 5, 6, now it's 7 days a week. Nobody cares if it's the weekend anymore.
Right.
In fact, I was catching up with Stephanie before I talked to you. I was like going, yeah, we were flooded. They don't care. They're like, well, if you're here, you're here. And if you're not, you don't get the placement. So I just keep plugging away. But, it's, give me your question one more time.
What makes a song syncable? Like a song that could be an A minus, maybe a B plus, but it's still eminently syncable. What are some of the characteristics of a syncable song?
Yeah, it's God, this is like, let me wave the magic wand.
Right. What kind of girl is the perfect woman for you, Bob?
Exactly. Well, that I can answer.
Oh, okay. Because she's
my
like,
wife.
Right, she's 50 feet away in the house right now.
It's funny, and Stephanie and I have a lot of these conversations. This sounds horrible. It's the je ne sais quoi. It's the thing that you can't really put your finger on. I mean, there's so many times Stephanie and I are talking and going, I love this song. I really love this song, but I don't know where in the hell I'm going to get this placed. And it has a lot to do. Oh gosh, what? Hey, you know what I've said? I've said it to writers 1,000 times, and we've talked about this too. Do you watch TV? Do you go to the movies? Do you rent movies? Do you pay attention to how music is being used in the medium that you're trying to get into? Again, the GPS scenario.
Yeah.
If you're trying to get to some point, then you best know where you're trying to get to and know why. Again, back to your point about these super, super specific lyrics, a song about Annie meeting Jerry at the local deli and having French fries and a burger. And, it may be a well-written storyline, probably best for a Broadway show as opposed to syncing with film and television. The great songs, Imagine, probably the biggest copyright on the planet, right? Imagine. What is that? I mean, John doesn't talk about any specific lyrics about religion per se. He doesn't say Christianity, Judaism. He doesn't go through any, it's this broad yet super powerful song, right? I'm guessing it's the biggest copyright probably in the planet. What makes that? I Want to Hold Your Hand. You mentioned the Beatles. I Want to Hold Your Hand. They don't go, I want to hold Jenny's hand, or it's I want to hold your hand. Help! I need somebody. Help! Not just anybody. It's and those are the Beatles.
Yeah,
they weren't writing for libraries with generic. It was That's where they were at, and it was in every how do I say this? An every man song,
Right.
John Lennon's "Working Class People," one of my favorite songs ever.
Interesting.
Or "Working Class Hero."
Yeah.
Great lyrics. I mean, John.
People in the chat are. I was thinking that they're already spitting it out in the chat room. Michelle, Prudence, Hey Jude, Lovely Rita, Meter Maid. Yeah, they were. They also had a lot that were completely unusable, even though they were the Beatles and the greatest writing duo of all time.
Well, I would say to those people that are typing that in, and yes, they did do that. Of course, they had the ability to do that because, as I said, they weren't writing for a music library.
Right.
But if you were to think, now take all that information, Lovely Rita, Meter Maid, and Maxwell Silverhammer, and da-da-da-da, ask yourself, okay, well, of that catalog of music, which were the ones that maybe ever got licensed?
Yeah.
You're not necessarily going to hear a Lovely Rita, Meter Maid where you might hear, Help, or you might hear Imagine, or you might hear, you follow, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that help kind of quantify the
I think it
stability?
does. Yeah, that's actually a great point. You're right. Go through the Beatles song list and think about which ones would conflict with the script because of specificity in the lyric and which ones wouldn't. And Bob, that was one of the most brilliant observations I think you've ever made in all the years I've known you. Yeah, good job.
Think of you could do the same with the Rolling Stones. Actually, you could probably go to Google and say, what are the top 10 Rolling Stones songs synced to film and television? What are the top 10 Beatles songs synced to film and television? Pick any artist that you love, Coldplay, whoever, whatever, and whatever you're interested in. That's the research that will be the GPS that's going to drive you somewhere.
And if you're that foolish person that says, I don't need to educate myself, I don't need to understand the layers of the onion because my music is just freaking awesome, dude. You're going to watch somebody whose music is not as frickin' awesome as yours get a lot more placements because they understand the rules of the game.
Very possibly. I mean, again, I'm, as a writer and having dealt with so many artists, as a player, I did a lot. We used to call them vanity records, and and you get paid a lot of money to go play on someone's vanity record, and they didn't care. They didn't care, but they were happy doing their music, and I was happy to play bass on it, and all that was fine. I would never say don't do that. Do what you love. Be creative. You don't have to be creative to make a buck. All I'm saying is, if you're going to be part of the music business, the minute you want to monetize something, now it's a business, and you would be, in my estimation, foolish to ignore what the marketplace wants.
Yeah. Let's talk mixing, which I don't think we've ever done before. And we've talked broadcast quality or not broadcast quality, and we can address that in the Q&A if there are a bunch of people that don't know what that is yet. But mixes, do people, we'll get into alt mixes in a minute, but just general mixes as far as the balance, the amount of reverb, the amount of bottom and top. Are there any rules? And I'm a retired engineer, but are there any rules that, or suggestions, maybe the nicer way to say it, that make a mix more usable or better suited for film and TV, or should you just mix it to sound like a record?
I would say mix it to sound like a record. Now, that being said, a record is a different thing to different people. I mean, Iggy Pop, his records didn't sound like the Rolling Stones. I mean, Sex Pistols. I'm trying to think of some of the rough around the edges punk stuff,
Yeah.
That was done with a completely different mindset. I mean, Led Zeppelin, the drums on those recordings were, quintessential. And, you go back to some of the stuff that we grew up with, Michael. We've been around for a while.
Some of us more than longer than others of us, just saying. I'm a little older, but yeah.
I don't know about that. But anyway, so, those recordings, if you put the vinyl on now, it doesn't sound like mixes today.
Right.
Um, you know, oh my God, I mean, I think back to some of the 70s when bass was, and being a bass player, when bass was such a fundamental part of the mix. Now it's sort of, well, I shouldn't say always. It's not, there's no big broad brushstroke. But over the years, it became less of a thing. It wasn't I mean, I can rattle off probably a dozen songs where the song wouldn't be that song without that bass part.
Think about Get Down, Boogie, Oogie, Oogie.
Sure.
That, one of the greatest, yeah.
Or Money by Pink Floyd, or, or any of the stuff James Jamerson back, the Motown. I mean, so mixes, how I look at them and how Stephanie and I review things, because we do look at mixes as well, is we take in account what is the genre, what is the era, what was happening in that era, in that genre, does this fit that sensibility, and will it work for that? If it's a modern piece of music, I look at it completely different from a mix standpoint than if it's something that's a 60s piece of music or a 50s piece of music. I mean, replicating music from the 50s or 40s is, you better be really good. Really good.
And it's hard to do that. Funny, Jeff Freundlich, right?
Sure.
Okay, good friend, I think, to both of us. Years ago, he's a guy that specializes, the first guy to specialize in vintage music, authentic vintage music, not stuff that sounds like it's from back in the day, but he will go to the ends of the earth to find stuff that was copyrighted in 1947, written in 1947, and recorded in 1947. And he's done he's done really, really well with that, and yay for him. We did a little experiment on stage at the Road Rally probably 10 years ago now, where we played him what we thought was the best sounding replication of a certain time period, where the guy, rented vintage mics, used a vintage console, like an 8-track 1-inch tape machine. Everything on it was the same stuff that would have been used, right down to the instruments and the amps and everything, back in the day. And we played that for him and said, vintage or not, and he knew in less than 10 seconds that it wasn't. And he said, there's just a thing, it's that je ne sais quoi that you mentioned earlier, that once your ears are trained to find it, you know it, and he could hear it. And so even though people who look for that music from him and license it for something, it may sound, the mixes may sound flaccid compared to today's audio quality. The vocal performances were basically done live into one microphone in a pass or two. All those things go into that secret sauce of making it feel incredibly authentic, and the people who need it for a scene that takes place in a certain era would rather have the authenticity and the vibe than the perfectly sung vocal that, not pitchy anywhere, or the mix that has plenty of bottom and kick in it. So so that said, I've noticed that many of my other library friends are getting into that now, that there are more and more shows, I'm guessing more productions that need vintage music. Have you delved?
It's been happening for years. It's been happening for years, Michael. And we do the same. The thing, hats off to Mr. Freundlich, because you have to basically be like a CIA agent
for the research to make sure it'll clear.
Yeah, well, because stuff from the 50s and 40s, it may have been, maybe it was done independently for their own record company. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was on a record company that doesn't exist anymore, but then you have to go, well, okay, who bought that company? And now who owns those masters? And okay, well, who owns the publishing with those masters? And were there other writers? Did they have any agreements with the musicians that were releases? I mean, it just starts to become this.
And are those people still alive? And if they're not, who controls the estate? Good luck hunting that down.
Well, yeah, and you could have, and I've dealt with this, where you've got three of the family members going, yeah, 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 and the fourth family member, who's the owner, is dead, and the children of that fourth member, they are just unsure if they even care about the whole darn thing. So it just, after a ton of going down the rabbit hole trying to get it all dialed up and dot your I's and cross your T's, you can't get it there. Can't get it over the finish line.
Yeah. You're right. They are like Jeff's company is like the CIA. And it's amazing because you're right. That fourth family member could go like, I don't care. I don't want to know. But or they could think they're sitting on top of something that's worth $1.7 million when really it's a $3,000 license for a TV show. Get over yourself. What
are you going to do? People make choices, and I respect choices that people make. I truly do. It's just when I see those kinds of choices, I don't know. I don't want to say anything negative other than, I've also dealt with some of the people that you also know that have inherited catalog, and they want to get it out into the public. They want to, it's an homage to their family members. It makes them feel good,
right,
to be able to have dad's or grandpa's material out there in the world. It keeps it alive. It keeps it moving, and that's the side I see. But if somebody doesn't want to do business, no harm, no foul.
We had one Taxi member that was in his 90s, and he recorded a bunch of music in 1944 or 1947, and he joined Taxi and was still making music in his 80s and 90s, by the way, and even though he was probably 70% deaf. Just an awesome guy. Anyway, he started getting a lot of placements, and I personally estimate he's probably bringing in another 20, 30 grand a year in his 80s and 90s. And I called him up one day, and I said, his name was Peter Sevo, and I called him up and said, Pete, I want you to know the staff and I are so happy for you and so proud of you, and it's so great that you're bringing in that extra income, when you're in your golden years living on a fixed income from Social Security. And he started cursing at me like a sailor, because he used to be a sailor in the Navy. He's like, listen here, young man, I'll leave out the expletives. He said, I don't give a blop, blop, blop about the money. It's not about the money. It's the fact that I recorded this music 60 years ago, 70 years ago, because I wanted to share it with people. I wanted people to hear what was in my musical soul. And because of what you people do at Taxi, millions of people have now heard my music all over the world. I literally started crying on the phone call. It was tough. I called Jeff afterwards, and the two of us we both cried the day Pete Sevo died. I think he was 96 when he died. But our favorite example of making dreams come true,
I get it, and those are the things that make you want to keep going every day.
Yeah.
The other stuff, you deal with it, but that's the stuff that keeps you just wanting to keep plugging away. That's the fun.
It is. Absolutely the fun stuff. I'm going to open up the chat to some questions now. We've got about 20 minutes left. I'll go a few minutes long on because we started a few late. So if you want a question answered, please type the word question in all caps at the beginning so it's easy for me to see it as it scrolls by in the chat. And we'll try and get to as many of these as we can. And I think Glenn Ruger was asking earlier, why would I want, in so many words, I'm doing a little summary here for him, but is it okay, or why would I want to sign with BMI when they're a for-profit company? And I'm pretty sure he's contrasting that with ASCAP, which is a nonprofit PRO. And for those of you who don't know, there are several PROs in America right now, but the two main ones are ASCAP, BMI. CSAC is certainly a player. And a PRO is the entity that collects your money when it's performed in a live situation, in a concert, on a TV show, on a radio station, anywhere where it's a public performance. You get paid for that, and they are in charge of collecting that money and passing it along to you. So You knew Ralph Murphy, right? From ASCAP Nashville. A
No,
big
I
tall
didn't
guy
know.
that was at many, many road rallies. One of my closest friends. He was in the inner circle as
Okay.
you are. And a songwriter himself, had written big hits in his day, producer, and he worked for ASCAP as our VP of International Membership. And he always said to me, why would you want to sign with BMI when it's owned by the broadcasters who want to keep the rates down because they're paying the rates? On the other hand, I know many, many taxi members where co-writers, one belongs to ASCAP, one belongs to BMI. And I would say in current times, because these things change, they ebb and flow. One year ASCAP may collect more money for you. Another year the BMI mystery formula will produce more income for you. But I would say in the last 4 or 5 years that the BMI people, two people are co-writers. You and I co-write something, we get it into a movie of the week, and they still have those. And you're BMI and I'm ASCAP, and you get a quarterly check, 6 months from now for $872. I'm the equal co-writer of the same song, same placement, and I get $321 because I'm with a different PRO. There's almost no explaining that, but that's the reality of life. So do you...
There is a way to explain that, but
Please do.
well, this is a pretty deep question, and I have to watch my P's and Q's with where I go with it.
Yeah.
But BMI has always been a for-profit company. However, they've always, until just about a month ago, operated as a nonprofit. They have now come out and made it publicly known that they are a for-profit company, and I'm a BMI writer. I'll just be, straight up there. That changes the trajectory in an interesting way, and what they've got going is quite interesting. And I would encourage every writer to pay attention to the backstory of the PROs and do all their due diligence. I've been a BMI writer forever and ever and ever. I used to be an ASCAP writer. I switched for a very specific reason. And I, as a writer myself, the first 10 years or so of the catalog, my catalog, I was either a writer or a co-writer on every piece of music in that catalog. And I did have ASCAP co-writers. And very early on, the eye-opening thing was when you would see BMI. So we were doing a lot of business with a soap opera that won't mention the name, and I was getting music placed 5 days a week, songs in this television show. I would have an ASCAP co-writer, I'd be a BMI writer. Well, if you think about soap operas, they tend to go from inside to an outside scene, back to that inside scene, outside scene, inside scene. So BMI paid each of those inside scenes as separate placements. ASCAP paid it as one line. So all of a sudden my co-writers were going after it. Didn't take them long. They're like, what do you mean you made your $870? I only made $300 and some odd dollars. And I'd be like, I don't know what to tell you, but writers should compare notes with other writers. Now, I know ASCAP, when it came to Muzak years ago, those writers that were in ASCAP, because it was largely instrumental and it was the back dealings, the license fees that ASCAP was able to generate from Muzak, those writers made more money by being ASCAP writers than BMI writers. It comes down to so many pieces of that magic formula that you're talking about. Each of those PROs, including CSAC, they go to the networks and they go, we need to do a license. Our license needs to be renewed with you guys. And, it's X number of dollars. And they come back and they go, well, we don't want to pay X number of dollars. And then BMI and ASCAP, they go, oh, well, I have this writer, this writer, this writer, this writer, this, all these shows that these writers are the composers for, and they use their muscle to go, we need to push our license fees up. Okay, and so those companies are in constant competition for what writers are in their PROs, so that it's leverage to try and push those fees. So if one PRO has a little more leverage than the other one, that other PRO is going to be able to negotiate better license fees. Those license fees need to be dispersed equally, in a perfect world, amongst the writers. And again, I won't go too into it because I do have some deeper insights to it. Unfortunately, no PRO is it.
Well, you froze. Shoot.
Yes, definitely has internet.
Oh no, we were doing so well. Well, welcome to the vagaries of live broadcasting over the internet. Do you want to text him and tell him to re-up? Hang on, folks. I'm gonna tell jokes till we're back. No, I won't tell jokes. I'm a terrible joke teller. Right, and here's the big secret. Yes, you can hear Michael. Awesome.
He's calling you. Do you want to talk to him or you want me?
You can. Just tell him to re-whack the link.
Hi, Mama. You just need to click.
Ariana's going to solve the problem. Michael, how are you still awake? Hi, Paul. We're just so full of adrenaline at the rally. And the hardest part of the rally was getting out of the hotel right after it was over so I could meet Ariana back at the office. Yes. What? Do you need me? The hardest part of the rally was getting out of the hotel because so many people wanted to stop me and thank me and tell me what they liked, what they didn't like. And I was like, of a single mind, I'm going to get my butt out of this hotel so that I can meet Ari at the office and we can get this stuff done before midnight tonight, which we did. And funny, Keith, I see Keith LeBrant saying leftover energy drinks. Rockstar was not a sponsor this year. Kelly Green, who'd been our person at PepsiCo that supplied the Rockstars forever, like 15 years, got promoted to a different division, didn't handle Rockstar anymore. She connected us with the person who does handle Rockstar, and he was like, what? Taxi? Oh, there's Bob.
I hear you. I hear you.
He says he hears me, he doesn't see me. And I see him, but I'm not hearing him in my ear.
Okay, well, sorry, give me 1 second. I'm just gonna come around and help Michael.
Should I not rejoin again?
No, don't. Just stay where you are.
Okay.
Oh, good. I can have a snack.
Can you hear us, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, he can hear you, but you can't hear him. Do you want to try again on your headphones? Because I can hear you.
And now I'm eating food. Oh, well.
Pastrami on rye.
No, I can't hear him. Go to window. Sorry.
It's okay.
Rendezvous audio mixer. Let's try audio mixer. Nope, should be good.
You want to ask him to just click on the link again?
Click what?
Click on the rendezvous link again.
I don't think that's the issue.
Well, it's asking me. It's asking me
dashboard.
It wants me to
Live up.
sign in.
There we go. Oh yeah, go ahead, sign in. Now I can hear you.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Unable to.
Now we're fine.
Unable to.
Can you hear
Unable
me?
to. I can hear you. I can't see you, and it says unable to connect to the session.
Well, you're connected to the session, so you won't be able to see my pretty face, but we can hear each other. Yeah, I'm sorry, Bob. You'll have to live without my, as my grandmother used to say, my lovely punum.
Actually, I was more interested in what you're eating.
You know, one of my favorite things in the world, Biscoff cookies.
Oh, you're so funny. Sure.
Oh, yeah, you can't see them. You know, the little Biscoffs that they give you on Delta Airlines?
I know Biscoff, sure.
Yeah, I buy them by the pound. Have you ever tried the Biscoff butter? It's like peanut butter, but made out of Biscoff cookies.
Michael, I can't eat like that anymore.
I don't either, but like once a year I'll buy a container of it, and try and get everybody else to eat most of it. Anyway,
as we get older, you gotta you can't be eating like that anymore.
I really don't. I'm a pretty healthy eater overall, but every now and then you got to have a little splurge. I'm not one of those people that splurges 5 days a week.
Well, hey, listen, let me go back to where I was very quickly to answer the gentleman's question. Why would I want to sign with BMI? It's a for-profit organization. I would say to that person that don't sign with any music libraries because they're all profit too.
Right. Well, if they're making a profit, they're encouraged to try and do well, and which makes you money as well.
Yeah, I mean, my MO with people when they go, which PRO would you recommend? I, as a publisher, to do things correctly, I would not do that to somebody. I'm never going to blacklist a particular PRO. Good music is good music. That being said, the simple answer from my perspective is I'm a BMI writer, and I'm not going to say any more. Do your due diligence. Go on and find other writers that are BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, whatever, and ask them. Just you got to get into the weeds.
Yeah.
And find out. I mean, it used to be if you were a country singer-songwriter, ASCAP, for whatever reason, the thought was ASCAP always paid better with the country market. I don't know for sure that that's true, but do your due diligence.
Yeah, absolutely. People always want the quick, easy answer. The quick, easy answer comes to those who search hard to find it.
Yeah. I mean, you might as well ask me, is the stock market going to be up tomorrow or down tomorrow? It's like,
I hope so, because it's been a depressing year so far.
Well, we don't have the crystal ball, and I try and have the crystal ball. When I'm signing music, I know, especially as an exclusive catalog, it's like we're getting married. It's for real. Somebody put their heart and soul and hours and time into this piece of music. I don't take that lightly. And I wouldn't take which PRO I'm going to sign with lightly either. And I think people from a business standpoint need to be thinking that way. Simple and easy isn't always the best. So
I agree. I've got a great question for you that a lot of people wonder about. Can you ask a library to not license your material for certain things? And I would imagine certain things are X-rated content, or maybe a political candidate whose views you don't agree with, or something that's got a lot of gun violence in it that may be a turnoff for some people. So can you ask a library to not do that, or is it like, here you go, you control it, license it wherever you would like?
Well, I can only give you my perspective, and if if a writer has limitations on where they want their music licensed, it's their music, and it's their choice. That being said, from my perspective, what you're doing is you're hamstringing me. You're tying my hands. So, and it's the same. Another version of that question would be, can I get right of refusal on
Whoa, that sounds dangerous and time consuming.
Well, imagine that I have to get on the phone with a writer to get their okay to get a placement when, Michael, you know how fast this business works. It's like by the time I get a hold of that writer, if they have a day job and they can't get to their phone, or you name they're on vacation, or they're just, I don't know, whatever. It's just I don't have time for it. It's just so if a writer feels that way and is interested in that kind of control of their material, that's fine, but it's not something I would be able to work with. And I can only speak for myself. Other music catalogs may feel differently, but then I would have to keep an entire database of okay, this person doesn't want their music used in any yoga videos. Oh, okay, this person doesn't want their music used in a synagogue. Oh, okay, this person doesn't. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God.
You can only use it in a yoga studio, but not a Pilates studio shot.
I understand wanting to have control, and this is where goodwill in the community doesn't come easy. I mean, the people I deal with, and I'm sure you still probably talk to them, Michael, people I've signed via Taxi. I mean, the reason we keep working together is they've seen over the years, those crazy things that people are afraid of. Those aren't the places I'm doing business anyway. I'm not placing a bunch of music in the porn industry. You don't have a lot of tracks with wah wah guitar and a wow wow wow. Well, we'll have a conversation about that some other time. But So I get it. And again, I respect the writers. It's your material. You do what you want with it. I mean, if you want to put it in, 10 non-exclusive catalogs, God bless you. That's your piece of music. Do what you want. If you want it in an exclusive catalog, then do that. If you want to do royalty-free, do that. I'm just here to say, know what you're doing. Know what you're doing. Don't just do it. Know what you're doing. Be educated about it, because every choice you make has consequences.
Absolutely. Here's another question. We may only have time for one more, because I do have another thing coming up behind us. Can you, where was it? Will you ever take songs that have already been released, but they don't mean released by another publisher, but released like distribution-wise on, with any of the aggregators, CD Baby, TuneCore, Apple Music, SoundCloud. So again, they haven't signed a publishing deal, but it's out there for the public to consume it.
Absolutely. We do it all the time. They just have to, as we spoke about an hour plus ago, if they check that box on CD Baby, where they give CD Baby the rights to control, the collection of royalties, et cetera, I can't do anything. You've already signed it away. But no, I love it when people are getting their music out there. It's better for you. It's better for me. It gives it legitimacy in the eyes of the music supervisors. You're an artist. You're out there. You're releasing. No, that's all fine and good. Again, if you were signed to a record label and it was released, that's right. No. That's no.
And I'm going to reword this question a little bit. It's from Fretman. What's the advantage to you? I think he's speaking to you, the owner of the library, of a perpetual license over a renewable 3-year license. Why do people want to sign stuff? Why do some libraries want to sign in perpetuity? And I know the answer you're going to give, and I think it's a great answer.
Oh, as opposed to a catalog that does reversions?
Yes.
It's a fairly simple answer. If we sign a piece of music, just a piece of music, that piece of music, and a lot of writers don't realize this, but that piece of music gets ingested into the catalog, meaning it gets ingested into our database. It gets ingested into so many tentacles of areas. And then we have clients at ABC, NBC, CBS, blah, 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 and they are serviced on a regular basis by us with our catalog, as are music supervisors here and around the world. And the reason we are in perpetuity catalog is that imagine you're, in an edit bay at CBS and you're pulling a piece of music and let's say it's 6 years after we signed it. If I don't control it anymore, it could still be sitting on their hard drive from me sending it to them 6 years ago or 10 years ago. We've also had, instances where a person from one company will move to another company. They'll take their hard drive, or we've had supervisors that have gone from one show. I mean, Dexter doesn't air anymore, but that supervisor has hung on to our music going way back. I mean, The Wire, The Shield, those supervisors, they're still in business. And, that music comes with them to their next production.
Yeah.
And so for me to be reverting, there's no way for me to get all that music back from all those hard drives that I don't even know where they are at this point in time. Meaning that, if a person moves out of the state, or they move from CBS to ABC, or ABC to NBC, or NBC to Netflix, or, and this happens, as it's musical chairs.
Yeah.
You're in this business and people go wherever the money is, or where they're feeling more satisfied as an employee, and they take the music with them. They take their relationships with them. And so for me, it's always been so much smarter to have our music where there's no question. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it's like, yes, we still control that piece of music. Yes, you're fine to use it. Yes, let's do business.
Imagine if you had 10,000 pieces of music in your catalog, and once a month you had to send out an email to every person that's got your bucket of music on their hard drive somewhere, and saying, okay, I need you to remove these 27 songs. Nobody's going to go in and remove it, first of all. They're going to be ticked off that you asked them to do it. It's like, we're not getting paid by you. It's not our job. You're right. It's impractical. You're not doing it because you're onerous or greedy, or you want to tie people up forever. You don't make money. They don't make money unless you're making money, and you want to make money for both of you. So
that's right.
It's
there's another thing I like about perpetuity, and that is it is a wall, meaning that it's another hurdle. And, because we are so about high quality, a very controlled environment for the people I work with. I mean, we're very blessed at Black Toast Music to be working with some of the best in the industry. So when I set that hurdle a little higher, that means a writer's going to think twice before they engage in doing business with us. I want them to. It's like if you ask a girl to marry you and she just goes, yeah, it's not going to mean the same as if, how do you feel about X, Y, or Z? Or, you date for 2 years or 3 years and you find out all of the downsides to this person. You go, well, maybe we're not right for each other. It's a mechanism that has, all I can say is it has worked for me, and it's worked for Black Toast Music. It's not right for everybody, and I think that's okay.
Yep.
Look, you can go to the restaurant, you can get vanilla ice cream, you can get chocolate ice cream, you can get strawberry ice cream. It's your choice. And thankfully the choices are there for people. Again, if you're reluctant to do business with a certain company style than another company style, again, do your due diligence. I've turned to taxi riders and said, look, I know my name and my company name. It's forbidden to be in the forums, but if you reach out to X, Y, or Z, and I'm not going to name any names because they'll get flooded with emails.
Right.
But if you were to talk to these guys and just go, hey, what do you think of Bob? How does he run his company? Get into the weeds. Again, my company wouldn't survive if I was in raping and pillaging writers. My company survives because I'm small, nimble, and we try and do the best we can for the writers we work with.
I think you should rename your catalog. Call it "Rape and Pillage Music."
Wow,
that would attract a certain type of writer. Anyway,
right?
we are way out of time. I cannot thank you enough for doing this. I know how busy you are, and you've always been so generous with your time. And I love talking to you. It's always an education for me, and I'm sure the people that are viewing this today and will see it in the future appreciate it as well. And man, I know you don't have any eminent plans to come back here, but when you do, make sure I'm on your list of people to go to dinner with. I miss you, Bob.
I miss you too, brother. Well, you're welcome here anytime.
Thank you.
Okay, buddy.
All right,
have a good one.
Thanks.
And I'd say it's great to see you, but I'm looking at a blank screen.
That's my wife says that's the whole experience with me anyway.
All right, brother. Have a great afternoon.
All right. Thank you, Bob.
Bye.
Be well.
Bye.
The card on Mair.
Oh, there you are. You're back.